I've been trying to figure out since 2004, to tell you the truth, how to develop swath grazing for alternative to feedlot growing cattle.
Today's guest is Tom Krawiec. Many of you know him from his book, Ranching Like a 12-Year-Old, or from his previous appearance on this podcast. Tom brings a practical, numbers-driven approach to grazing, and he's not afraid to challenge assumptions. In this episode, we talk about grazing in the sweet spot, understanding your numbers, the concept of the tipping point in forage production, and why small changes in management can create massive results. You're listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast, where every conversation starts from the ground up. I'm your host, Cal Hardage. Calling all ranchers, if you're looking for a better way to optimize your grazing operation and rev up your bottom line, Noble Research Institute can help. Noble's team of ranch managers and researchers work together to find solutions to your challenges. They don't just give you the answers. They help you understand how to apply their research-tested and field-proven principles on your ranch. Visit noble.org and click the Find a Course button for information about online and in-person educational courses near you. For 10 seconds about the podcast, I've rebuilt the Grazing Grass resources. You can get there by going to grazinggrass.com and clicking on resources. I think it's much easier to use, fits into the website, and I encourage you to submit your listing. Hope to see you there. So, Tom, we want to welcome you to the Grazing Grass Podcast. To get started, for our listeners out there, some of them may have heard of your book. Some of them may have listened to your previous episodes here or your episodes on other podcasts. But for our listeners who haven't, who are you?
Well, I'm Tom Krawiec. I called it grass farming in the spring of 2000 after taking a holistic management course. And I've been that ever since. And years ago, I published a book, Ranching Like a 12-Year-Old. And that was my ideas of two things. One, my ideas of how to manage grass. And the other part is how to make ranching simple, easy, and fun by cutting down your labor. And so then, you know what? I guess how we got to know each other a little bit was I reached out to you when I was promoting my book. And that's how we met.
And at the time, I had your book on my shelf, but I hadn't read it.
And that was embarrassing, but anyways, it is what it is.
But I did read it. It's one of my favorite books. It's a book I recommend to someone who I'm talking to who's they're concerned about the amount of labor, needing a simple system. I'm like, here's a system for you to try and to use because it'll work for you.
You know, Cal, something that I've experienced since I've published the book, the number of people that I have talked to or heard from in the homesteader movement.
Yes.
They are getting beat up because, you know, they see the TikTok videos and you know, everybody's doing all these amazing things, which is great, you know, and the idea is fantastic, you know, great food for your kids and raising your kids in a certain way. But they aren't being told how much work it is. And so then,
it's a lot of work.
And these people are getting beat up, you know, and I've heard stories, you know, people are crying 3 times a day because they're overwhelmed and they're questioning themselves. What's wrong with me? Why is everybody else able to do it? And why am I not able to do it? And I find it heartbreaking. Yeah. I remember being there, you know, when we started, you know, we only had 40 cow-calf pairs we started with. We were custom grazing. And then we had our 30 head of ewes. And then we had 70 hogs and we had turkeys. And we were run off our feet. And I tell you what, so it was about 7 years later, after we transitioned and I had the template and I had the idea of just asking myself everything I did. I asked myself, can a 12-year-old do this? And if a 12-year-old couldn't, I changed it or I stopped doing it. We were running 3,000 head and I had 1 or 2 summer students for the summer. And between the two of us, we had 6 hours of work a day.
Yeah.
And it was crazy and it was just asking that one question. And so when I talked to these homesteader people, I said, okay, you can't do everything. You
can't.
I think you can, not all at once. And you have to figure out how to get your labor down, and then you can add on another enterprise. But I know a lot of people are scared of, I'm not sure if scared is the word, not aware that you can put all these animals together.
Oh, yeah. And so many of them get into homesteading and they want to provide a variety of proteins for their own table, maybe a few for sale, but they're really thinking about that nutrition for them, healthier proteins. And so you need a few pigs, you need a few cows. You mentioned when you started, 40 pairs, 30 sheep, so many hogs. They're only talking a handful of each, but the amount of time it takes to handle a handful is super close to the amount of time it takes to handle 40. The labor scales really well with numbers on that. But when you're trying to do everything, especially if you're learning, if you don't know what you're doing, don't try and do everything. Just get started.
Get started, yeah. Cal, to tell you the truth, the only reason that I started putting the animals together is it was labor.
Oh, yeah.
The after effect, the benefit to the grass, well, that was surprising to me. That didn't even factor in that decision. It was, we had too much labor and I had to do something. So I just started putting the animals together. And then it was just do you remember the cover of my book? That mob there? So I had the horses, the cattle, the sheep, and the hogs.
Yes.
When you put all those animals together, it's like a polyculture, just that it's animals. What it did to the grass, it blew my mind. Once I had, like that mob there, that was the biggest mob that I had. That was about roughly 1,000 animals altogether. But all those different species, I kind of think of it as each species massages the soil differently.
Yes.
Yeah, and what I saw, what it did to the grass was just phenomenal. And it was pretty cool. Where I'm at right now, I introduced that idea slowly. And actually, we're going to start with a small group this year. So we'll definitely have the cattle and the sheep and the horses. And I have kind of just thrown the idea out that maybe can we throw 10 hogs in there as well? So I think I have support. And so we're going to start that.
Are they already running those species besides the hogs, or are you adding those in?
Nope, they have all that. Just all the poultry and the hogs are in confinement.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And they just have a small flock of sheep. They used to have 350 ewes, but they were running them conventional and just high labor, so that, they just have enough for them, for the colony itself. But we're going to get that changed over the next 2-3 years. So
that'll be interesting to see how it goes. I love the concept of, multiple species in there. We talk about soil health and diversity being one of those core tenets. And we talk about diversity in everything we do, diversity in the grasses. We have grazing there, but sometimes we get to our animal that's harvesting the grass and we forget about diversity there. And I think that's so good to get those species together and how the effect of each of them compound on each other.
Right. And I have not seen, you do not get the benefit in a leader-follower scenario. I'm not exactly sure why. Well, I know one thing, a leader-follower, it's very difficult to respect the graze period.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So do you think that's just a time issue there? Or do you think there's something else going when you have a cow eating next to a sheep eating next to a pig?
I want to say there's something there when they're all together. In the same way that what polycultures are doing to soil health. Because a grain farmer, well, well, every grain farmer has a rotation, right? And it's basically it's a leader follower, but you
Yes, it
don't get
is.
the soil health benefits until you put all those species together. That's how I'm not a soil scientist, but visually and what I'm seeing, somehow it works differently when all the animals are together side by side.
I'm I'm no expert, as you well know, Tom, but I think about what nature does. A lot of those large grazing herds are not just single species. They have other species there, either around the outside edges or interspersed within them.
Yeah. You don't have to, with the internet, you don't have to go very far and you can see, what's going on in Africa.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
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 So,
So that's interesting. Let's talk about, you just had an article published in the Stockman Grass Farmer in February.
yes. So what happened was I was asked to present talking about the grazing in the sweet spot at the South Dakota Soil Health Conference, January 2025. And so the night before, they had a banquet for the presenters and the sponsors, that sort of thing. And I was sitting at a table with, I think there was 5 people at the table. And one of the people was the director for a ranch that was a research ranch. Sorry, that's what I'm looking for a research ranch. Okay. So I'm just sitting there listening. And then after dinner, he's talking about what he's doing and he's lamenting that ranches around them are not buying into what they're doing. And he's trying to, he is asking us people at the table, well, what, for ideas of what they could be doing. So everybody throws in there, do this, for extension and that sort of thing. And then I asked him, is it possible that you're not doing well enough? And he said, what do you mean? We're already doing 4 times better than, the ranches around. I said, well, is that enough? And he's kind of, And I said, would you mind if we did the numbers? Because I know I have the formulas in my head because I use them all the time. And so he said, yeah, that'd be great. So I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen. And so then I started asking him questions like how many acres, how many pairs, how big are the pairs, how many grazing days. And interesting thing happened, Kel. Next thing I know, there's 12 people sitting around the table because nobody is using numbers to evaluate the cost of grass or revenue off of grass. So, yeah, so I'm asking him these questions and, someone pulled out a calculator and we start going. And then, so we got I work in stock days per acre because that's a standard animal unit. So then I know if I'm grazing sheep or if I'm grazing pairs, how heavy they are. If I'm grazing yearlings, it's a standard, just like bushels per acre or bales per acre. Then, you have to find out how heavy the bale is. So anyways, I use stock days per acre. So what happened was we get to the point of stock days per acre. Cool.
Okay, before you go further, Tom.
Oh,
For someone who doesn't know what stock days per acre is, can you explain that a little?
yes. So basically stock days per acre, it stands for, stock days per acre, but it's a standard animal unit. Like I said, so there's a table that I use. I have from Holistic Management, and it tells you the one standard animal unit is 1,000-pound dry pregnant cow. And then everything goes up or down from there. As an example, with sheep, a ewe who is lactating, so there's be 4 lactating ewes. That's one standard animal unit. So anyways, you can go up or down from that. And then you just figure out how many, the formula is standard animal units. So let's say you had 100,000-pound dry pregnant heifers. So your standard animal unit for that would be 100 because it's 1.0 times 100 head. So that's your standard animal unit. Then times your grazing days divided by the number of acres. And that's stock days per acre. And I think of it in my head, I think of it to be very similar to bushels per acre. Like if you're a grain farmer, bushel per acre or bales per acre, you'd convert that to dry matter and you could get, okay. So that's stock day per acre.
Yeah, which gives a nice standard number to work with.
That's right. I really like it. There's not, even though holistic management and ranch for profit both teach that, my experience, not many people actually use it in a day-to-day basis. So anyways, getting back to that night before the conference. So we get down to the point of stock days per acre. And then I ask, well, I don't like to stop there. I want to figure out how much revenue I'm generating. Because I started, I was custom grazing when I started up. So everything, I paid so much per acre for rent. And so I always wanted to know how much revenue I was generating per acre. So anyways, the custom grazing rate, and I don't remember exactly in the article what it was for their area. But at the end of the day, it worked out to their revenue was $68 per acre. Their rent was $80 per acre. And I tell you what, his face just dropped. And he said, ew.
Yeah.
So basically what you're telling me is we're ranching for less loss. And it was kind of funny that he used that phrase because I remember Dave Pratt. I think I took my first ranching for profit school in 2003. And I remember Dave Pratt using that term one time. So it was funny that I don't know if the guy heard it before or what, but anyways, it was very apropos.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so then, I said, but what you're doing already, because he's already, all his infrastructure was set up. And he's telling me, how much ground cover they have. And they're already rotating, just that they're not grazing in the sweet spot. So I was very confident. I am very confident that if he just tightened up his grazing so that he's respecting both the graze period and the rest period. And when I say respecting the graze period, it's kind of difficult. I do actually have a video to show on my YouTube channel that I demonstrate how to calculate what your graze period is. And you actually let the animals tell you that. So because if, like, let's say I'm going to latitude of Athabasca, Alberta. So that first rotation, and it's been consistent since 2000, is about 3 days. So if you stay there for 4 days, there's enough grass, new growth, that the animals can take another bite of the new growth on day 4. So it's very important that you don't stay there, at that first rotation longer than 3 days, or you're going to be overgrazing.
And I know we talked about this with the first episode you were on, but let's talk about how someone calculates that.
I do a strip graze. Okay, so I did this by accident to start with, and I had a paddock. Again, I'm fresh from holistic management, and so got a strip graze to get animal impact. So that was my thinking. And so I had a paddock, long and narrow, and I figured for the size of herd, that strip would last 5 days. So I had it figured out. So day 1, I gave them the first break. And then the thing about, they had to walk back down an alley to a solar water. So they had that first break the first day. Second day, I gave them another break, another strip. But they had to walk through the first strip to get back to water. Day 3, same thing, but they had to walk through the second strip and the first strip back to water. Day 4, gave them the 4th strip, and they're moved because it's all, fresh grass. Then they grazed, they walked back for water. They stopped in the first strip because there was new grass there, new growth. It's like ice cream, and they're going to have some ice cream. And so that's what happened. And then day 5, so they were overgrazing the first strip. Day 5, they were overgrazing the second strip. So when I called them to come into the day 5 strip, there was only like maybe 5 cows that came in. The rest were overgrazing in that first 2 strips.
Oh yeah, fresh, new regrowth. Yeah.
Yes. So again, it's a little hard to just explain, but so I did a video and it actually has visuals and you can see the flow, if anyone's interested on that. And yeah, so that was the animals told me that. I didn't guess that. I let the animals tell me that. And that varies. What I've discovered is that varies with latitude, because the further north you go, May, June, and July, our daylight hours are a lot longer. Because at the latitude of Athabasca in mid-June, the sun doesn't set till about 11:30 at night, and then it's up at 4:30. So there's a lot of daylight hours, and so then you get this concentrated growth in short period of time. So then as you go further south, your graze period can lengthen because the grass is growing slower, in a 24-hour period.
Right. The daytime length really affects that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just found that I trust the animals to tell me that a lot more than I trust myself. So I discovered that by accident, but it has really carried me through and helped me get to discover the sweet spot, grazing in the sweet spot.
So, yeah, so from that, you took the graze period. So that's at 3 days, because on day 4 they went back and grazed regrowth. But then you're going through 13 paddocks, and because of the graze period being whatever length it is that you've measured out, and going through your 13 paddocks, you're grazing in the sweet spot.
It's perfect. Yes, that's exactly.
I did read your book.
Good. It's coming back good. Yeah, it is. And the thing about the rest period is we can go, everybody knows about, you don't want to have too short of a rest period.
Right.
But it's, in my experience, is just as detrimental as having too long of a rest period. And Dr. Chris Nichols and I have spoken many, many times about this, because she's a big proponent of, she used the bodybuilder analogy, that a bodybuilder doesn't just train once a month, and that analogy there is we need to be feeding the soil biology more than once a year. And each time that the plants are clipped, a process called compensatory photosynthesis is stimulated, and you have this huge flush of exudates that are released to the soil, and that's what feeds the biology. But as soon as the plants go into reproductive phase, they stop doing that, and the exudates go into the seed head.
There's been lots of discussions about that rest period and extending it. I know last year on one place that I have leased, I was extending the rest period, I was trying to do more of a non-selective graze, really hit an invasive weed I have hard. And I actually think I promoted that invasive species to grow better than it ever has before.
It's been my experience.
So I will not be doing that this year on that place.
And here's the thing. I actually haven't written about this, but this idea of non-selective grazing. I know Jaime in Florida.
Yeah.
I forget. Elizondo? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I know he talks about this a lot, and I would say I agree with him, but there's another way to get non-selective grazing, and that's to train your animals. I have a buddy, Mike Hiddinger, up at Clyde, Alberta, and I was there helping him out a couple summers ago, or springs and summers ago, and I watched his cattle, and I have never seen a group of cows, they're just cows, have such a wide palate. Oh, yeah. It was so cool. So I would move them into a new paddock, and they're sampling everything just, that's what it was. It's sampling everything. And they're walking and they're sampling this and sampling that, taking bite of everything. I have never seen, honestly, I've never seen a group of cattle have such, like I said, such a wide palate. And Mike never did anything. I don't know how that happened, but it was pretty cool to see.
So he didn't train them to eat any more species. That's just, they learned that on their own.
Yeah. Actually, he told me, he said he thinks that there's been a few falls where he left them out for too long and they had to try stuff. So he actually thinks that's how that happened. So I don't know, but it was pretty cool to see. And a neat thing that happened was, so we have called common tansy, and common tansy, I know it has this reputation that it's supposed to be noxious to cattle and supposed to cause abortions. And it's, in our area, definitely in Alberta, it is considered fact. That has not been my experience. And so then I've done a lot of reading, trying to find actual data, scientific data on this, and there is none. But every paper that I have read about common tansy, they all highlight the farmer knowledge that this is the case. But there is research with common tansy from Australia. It does cause liver damage, but there's nothing about abortions. And so I've grazed and I've taught a lot of cattle to eat tansy, and I have tested it, and it's very high in energy and very high in protein. Like we're talking 22, 23% protein, and, wow. and the TDN is like 68, 70% TDN. So it's very high in nutrition. So anyways, but Mike's cattle, they sample tansy. And so just like, they take a bite of alfalfa, they take a bite of clover or, other grasses, and that's what they were doing at the tansy. But I moved them into this one paddock, and it was kind of it was a peaty soil. And so it wasn't great grass, but there was a lot of tansy in there, and they stripped the tansy. All that there was left was a stalk. And I said, well, that's interesting. And then I thought, why would they do that? And then I realized the grass underneath, I was Kentucky bluegrass and creeping red fescue. So you know what after it's not that great, in terms of volume. And, right. And I took and I said, I bet you those cattle are balancing their ration. And so I took a feed test of that grass, and sure enough, it was low in protein and low in energy. And they already knew that, hey, here we have this protein and energy supplement, and they were doing it themselves. So that was pretty cool.
That is. And, I'd love to chase that a little bit, but I don't know if we have time to chase that today.
No, we don't, because...
But that would be an excellent conversation to dive deeper into.
Yeah. Well, this is all, like Fred Provenza, how much work has he done on this very thing?
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to read his book, Nutrition?
I've only read portions of it. I haven't read the whole book yet. Daniel Griffith was on the podcast a couple of times. He talks about what he's doing at his farm and how he's managing it based upon a lot of things that Fred has said.
Okay. Myself, I just have let the animals, I have trained them in the past to eat different things. And then after that, I just make sure that keep everything vegetative and they help themselves. But I know it's a kind of a heavy book because, Fred's an amazing guy. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to visit with him, but he's in my mind, he's one of a few people in North America that not only are very intelligent, but very perceptive and creative thinker, and really can. Yes. So anyways, but the book I found very worthwhile, just that I found it a little challenging. And you know how smart I am, so I should be able to read anything, but I had trouble with it.
Yeah. I have it on my shelf, and I started listening to the audiobook, and I'm really terrible with audiobooks. I listen to a little bit, and then I get distracted, and I don't know what I heard.
Yeah, I have to read because I listen to an audiobook and I forget right away, and it's so.
I agree. It's just not the same. It's more passive than it is active.
I think that he's an awesome guy, and the things that he did professionally just really revolutionary. If a person sat down and read the things that he did in his research, this non-selective, like I'm talking about, this non-selective idea that you have to make these animals eat everything, we wouldn't be doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because the animals would do it themselves.
I need them to eat Sarisa Lesbidi.
You know what? There's a young guy who read my book, one of the first people that read my book, and he sent me an email, and I was like, oh, this is cool. So I stopped in to visit him a couple times, and he was showing me how he's a direct marketer, and his feeders were eating the fresh stuff. But then we went to another paddock, and he let it get mature, or actually not mature, but more mature.
Yes.
They wouldn't touch it. But he showed me and he was all excited. I didn't know that they ate that, but it was because of the stage that it was at.
Oh, yeah. It gets too mature very quickly.
Very quickly.
And that's what I did wrong last year, because I know it does. And we used to have a lot of it on part of my dad's place, and we basically have grazed it out, which was my goal.
Good for you, Cal.
Grazing completely changed it. And I want to say grazing did it. We also put chicken litter on the land, and that increases that fertility and maybe less need for Sarisa lesbidisa in the ecosystem. So that may have contributed, but our grazing management got rid of it here, but I'm doing a very poor job on leased land.
Why is that?
Because I've tried different things. I let it rest too long.
Okay.
I'm completely convinced that's what I did, because you've got to graze it. You've got to graze it often to keep it in that vegetative state. And I gave it too long, and it gets too stemmy, too mature. They don't want to eat it. And then you've lost with that.
Yeah.
So if you're going to rest too long for them to come back and eat it, you about have to go in there and cut it.
Yeah. You can't force them.
At Redmond, we know that you thrive when your animals do. That's why it's essential to fill the gaps in your herd's nutrition with the minerals that they need. Made by nature, our ancient mineral salt and conditioner clay are the catalyst in optimizing the nutrients your animals get from their forage. Unaltered and unrefined, our minerals have the natural balance and proportion that your animals prefer. This gives your herd the ability to naturally regulate their mineral consumption as they graze. Our minerals won't just help you improve the health of your animals, but will also help you naturally build soil fertility so you can grow more nutrient-dense pasture year after year. Nourish your animals, your soil, and your life with Redmond. Learn more at redmondagriculture.com.
I really found that out we have grass called reed canary grass.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had fantastic gains on reed canary, like 2.5 pounds on heifers on reed canary grass. But I've also had it where they wouldn't eat it. And I have the 2 feed tests side by side, and they're only like 2 years apart, but different stage of management.
Yeah. I've heard really mixed responses to reed canary grass.
Yeah. You just have to keep it vegetative, and then it's phenomenal, like in terms of quality and volume.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Now, Tom, let's get back to you're at the South Dakota conference, and you all went through the numbers, and you feel that
so then
he was grazing in the sweet spot, he could solve that ranching for less loss.
Yes, because he was doing so many things right. That's kind of what I see is when people have been doing some amp grazing, for several years, they are doing so many things right. It's just a little tweak, but that little tweak will just take them to another level. And so I was very confident that if he would start using his grazing chart and really focusing, like for his area there, I was thinking probably 40 rest period should only be 42 to 45 days. I was just guessing,
right.
But I explained how to use those animals to tell them what the graze period was. So if he was using that short rest period, 42 to 45 days, he would be there. And so then we did the numbers again, just if you got to the tipping point. And the tipping point is where forage production reaches a point where it becomes a self-propagating system. There's enough volume that it can increase just with our management. It doesn't need any more inputs. We just have to, with our management. And so that, what I have found on over and over again is that it's at about 170, 175 stock days per acre. And so anyways, we ran those numbers because I knew that he'd be able to get there very quickly. And it worked out to his gross revenue was $150 per acre.
And is he getting there to that many stock days by changing and grazing in the sweet spot?
Yes. And he would have to add more animals. But I told him, don't worry about that right now. Just go get into the sweet spot, and then you're going to see, what the hell, I have all this grass.
Oh, yeah.
That's been my experience. I've been to, I think, 2 or 3 ranches where they've already been doing some level of amp grazing, and all I've done is just tighten it up. So the recovery, I didn't violate the graze period, and I shortened up the rest period. And next thing you know, we need twice as many animals.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
In 1 year. Because, the soil is in pretty good shape. They have quite a bit of ground cover, and it just needed that just subtle. So I was very sure, I didn't take his contact information, and I didn't stay in contact, but I'd be very curious to know what he's done, because he's pretty adamant. Okay, this is what we're going to do, because grazing for less and loss is not what they want to be doing.
Right. Yeah. Now, I don't recall reading in your book about the concept of the tipping point. Now, I think Malcolm Gladwell released a book called The Tipping Point, though.
He did, but I started using the tipping point in about 2008.
Oh, okay.
So I think that he might have heard me using it. And
that's why he might have. Exactly.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's in chapter 7.
I missed it because when I read your article about the tipping point, and I did not recall that. So
okay,
maybe it's time to reread your book, huh?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Why don't you buy another copy, because your other copy is getting old. So.
Oh yes, good point. Good point.
Yeah, I'm still getting royalties, right? So interesting thing about the tipping point was I was talking with Joel Salatin. Everybody knows Joel Salatin, I think, in Regen. Okay.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and we were just talking about grass production, and I mentioned about this tipping point, if he had noticed it, and he hadn't really paid attention, but he said, you know what, you're right. And when he started to think about it, he said, yes, and it's we're at about this, he doesn't use stock days per acre, I think he uses like cow days per acre, if I remember or not. But anyways, but it worked out, it was at about the same level. And then it just takes off. Like my experience with, once I get to the tipping point, in about 2 years, I'm at 300 plus stock days per acre.
Oh, yes. Is that at the tipping point? How long does it take you to get to the tipping point once you start grazing in the sweet spot?
That depends on where you start. The soil health principles have to be adhered to. And like I've been challenged quite a few times about the tipping point. But then I start asking these people about the soil health principles. And okay, no, we have, 50% ground cover. We don't really have any thatch. No, I'm not using a grazing chart. Okay. You can't say that in your area, you can't get to the tipping point at 170 stock days per acre, because you have not seen where you are managing grass with all the soil health principles. That interesting thing that I have found, just touring around different ranches, is that every ranch I've been to, there's someplace on that ranch that they have this explosion of grass. So that tells me in your area, if the conditions were the same as this, wherever it is, it might be a corral. A lot of times it'll be around corrals that they have all this bloody grass. And out in their pasture, they have, hardly any grass. And they think that's the norm, or that's all they can do. But people miss, well, how did this grow here? It has the same moisture, but there's something missing around the corral, or out in the pastures compared to around the corrals. And a lot of times it has to do with, I think the most vital thing is somehow you have to get ground cover. And to get ground cover, you have to get some forage. Of course, bale grazing works. Bale grazing, I have data where I've gone from 40 stock days per acre and then bale grazed that winter. And the following year, I have 200 plus stock days per acre.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem with that is you can't cover much ground. In fact, a buddy of mine, Steve Kenyon, he writes a lot of articles and things and talks. And I think it was like 8 years ago, we sat down just to figure out how much ground you could cover. And with 100 head feeding for 100 days, you can cover 13 acres.
Oh, yes. Really dense with the bale grazing.
Yeah.
So one thing you mentioned as you talk through that is that tool, the grazing chart.
I do know for myself, I am unable to get to where I get to without the grazing chart because it's so easy. It's so easy to violate, particularly the rest period.
I know for me, if I don't have it wrote down or recorded in some fashion, grazing chart, notes, when I grazed a pasture, I'm likely not to respect the rest period when I come back because I'll be like, oh, it's ready. And I'll push it up, put cattle out there, which I think observation's really good. You need to know what's going on out there. But I know if I do that and I go look at the grazing chart, I violated it according to that. Now, on the other hand, there's some people say, well, don't get hung up on the calendar. When the grass is ready out there, move them out there. What's your response?
We aren't good enough to know that. I've been doing this since 2000. It's my first grazing chart. And I have grazed a lot of animals, a lot of pastures. And even today, I do not trust myself, my eye.
Yeah.
Particularly, like as an example, I had a pasture this year. We had 24 paddocks in there. It's very easy to go way over your rest period and get everything. And because once the plants are in mature state, you cannot get back.
Oh, yeah.
Because they'll grow back sometimes, but they'll grow back. What I've noticed is they'll only grow back about 50% of what they possibly could if you kept them in the sweet spot, if you didn't let them get. The thing is that we don't notice it. So then we blame it on, it's like, okay, that 50% did get taken away. So we don't notice it. And then we blame it on something else. Oh, well, yeah, but it didn't rain when it should have, or
right.
It's never our management. It's always, something else. So the grazing chart as a planning tool, not as a recording tool, as a planning tool. So you know what? I'm always do things in pencil to start with. And I have a very large eraser because I'm, updating all the time. And I don't trust myself staying on track without it. And so then, and I don't know, I just, people have a difficult time with the grazing chart. And it's such an easy thing in my mind. So I don't know what the stumbling block is. And I feel, people say, well, what should I do? For my pasture, what kind of plants should I have? And it's not sure how I have this feeling people want a silver bullet and there's no silver bullets.
Oh yeah. No.
And we have to get that soil biology multiplying and healthy, and it takes time, and we have to be feeding the soil biology. Like, have you listened to Dr. Chris Nichols talk at all?
Actually, I wrote down her name, and I'm not sure who she is right off, so I've got to go look. Oh. Maybe when if I see a video, I'll be like, oh, I know who that is. But right now I don't.
Yeah. Okay. But you know what? She talks almost in every talk that I've listened to. She mentions about feeding the soil biology more than once a year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, and just to keep it robust. So, okay. So that was the grazing chart. And I can't say.
Let me tell you why I fell on the grazing chart.
Did you say fell on it?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you, if this was my wife keeping track of the grazing chart, never a problem. Never a problem. But for me, I start out the year really well. And I'm keeping track, and I use it as a planning tool, but I'm also recording what I do on there. But somewhere in there, it's like I come in, I'm like, I'll do that later. And then it becomes 2 days, then it becomes, oh, I'll do that later because it's still in my head. And then before I know it, I've gone a few weeks and I'm like, I don't remember all those dates I had in my head. So it's important for me to get it down somewhere, but going to it and doing it, it's my procrastination that gets in the way. Oh, I'll do it later. I've got it in my head right now. And then later doesn't come soon enough.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing is that you are the recording.
Right. So I
can
can use it for planning, but then I put on there to keep track of where I've been and stuff.
Yeah. Because what I do is I only do one rotation now.
Oh, okay.
Because things change.
Right.
Like in 2021, things changed 3 times. Like the recovery period changed 3 times significantly. And so, but I'd already by that time, just from experience, I know that sort of thing happens. So now I just do one rotation at a time. And then once I, getting close to the end, then I can, okay, things are about the same. So then I can, just stay on course or, oh, we better slow down, that sort of thing. But the planning I find is way more important than the recording to keep myself on track.
Oh, yes.
So that like some people may disagree with me, but my experience is you cannot violate the rest period. You cannot violate the graze period. And it doesn't matter how many excuses, whatever. And you cannot do that. Otherwise, at the end of the season, it come November and December, you're going to have crappy feed. You're going to have cattle that did not gain well. And then you're going to have to look for excuses. But at the end of the day, it's in my experience from making these mistakes was my management. And it was because I violated, most times it was that I had my recovery period too long. I started looking at the grass because when you're grazing in the sweet spot, you're taking 30 to 40%. That's it. So there's a whole pile of grass that is still out there. Most of it, a lot of it'll have a little bite, but if you were just to walk through, holy cow, there's 3 more days here. Yeah. And there would, but you'd have to eat it right down. But to keep it in the sweet spot, like I said, you're taking 30 to 40%, and you do not want. And there's actually research from 2001, where I found that is the case. If we take more than that, well, actually, Kreiter's started in 1954 talking about that very thing, about taking more than 50% and how the roots die back. There's research that has shown if you take no more than 40%, like I said, 30 to 40%, that's it. The plant nothing dies back. It just keeps growing. All the roots keep growing. There's no slough of roots, and it just keeps going.
But as you point out, you're out there. There's a little bit of grass out there. You think, oh, I can graze this another day or 2 days. It's easy to do that.
It's so easy to do that.
Yes.
So easy to do that. And that's where the grazing chart as a planning tool is my master.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what I think. I have to follow the grazing chart.
Now, Tom, you have another article coming out in the Stockman Grass Farmer sometime in the future.
No, it's actually coming out in June in the Canadian Cattleman's magazine.
Oh, okay. It's coming out Oh, okay.
in their June issue. So basically it's the same article, but what I have found is that people who have not taken ranching for profit or holistic management don't really understand the concept of the stock days per acre. But pretty much everyone understands pair day, cow calf pair day.
Oh, okay.
So basically it just dawned on me this winter that that's the case. So I thought, well, I should write an article and convert everything to cow calf pair days. And so that's what I did in the article. And the cool thing about that article, I actually have data from my buddy Mike's spring and summer that I was helping him out.
Yes.
And I have a quarter. So just a perfect quarter. And he had 70 cow calf pairs there. And we just went through the numbers. It's the same formula. Just instead of standard animal unit, it's a cow calf pair day or a cow calf pair. And in that case, I used 1,350 pound cow and then April born calf. So that's the standard that I used in that scenario. And you can use whatever. It has more to do with comparing yourself from year to year. So it's the same formula. So it's the like in that case, it was 70 pairs. And on that quarter, we grazed 185 days. And then, so it's pair days times grazing days divided by acres.
Now, when you think about those pair days, if you're grazing a pair and the calf's 60 days old versus 5 months old, there's a different amount of consumption happening.
Yes. And so, but here's what I do with the stock days per acre.
Oh, okay.
So a 1,350 pound cow and calf, according to the chart, her standard animal unit is 1.75. Okay. And I don't adjust that throughout the season because I might be wrong, but in my mind, when that calf first goes out, it's less than 1.75 standard animal unit because it's a little calf.
Right.
And then, come September, October, she's probably higher, because that calf, is what, 450 pounds, 500 pounds. So then it's above that 1.75. So it's kind of, in my mind, it's not perfect, but it's close enough for what we need.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. And so that's why I just use it 1.75 when I'm doing standard animal units. And in this other scenario with the cow calf pairs, it averages out. And really I use these numbers to see if I'm going ahead or going backwards in terms of grass production.
Oh, yes. So you can compare prior years to this year, see how you're going on the overall picture.
Yeah, exactly. Like I developed a spreadsheet. So I have at the end of the year, I go to my grazing chart. And because after we've done graze the paddock, then I mark it in pen. So then at the end of the year, I can go that line across the grazing chart. We might graze it three times and then one time in the dormant season. And then at the end of the year, I can calculate how many stock days I harvested, and then I just total that up. And then I have a final column and that what happened last year. So it's just for me so that I don't have to look back. It's just on one chart.
Right. It makes it easy for you to see and compare it quickly and see if you're making ground or if something else changed.
Yeah. Because honestly, I don't trust my memory. So I like to have hard numbers, and then there's no BS, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And so, you don't have this problem, but as I age, I figure out that I really shouldn't trust my memory as much as I did before.
I'm older than you, Cal. I just have good genetics, and that has nothing to do with...
There we go.
That came from my parents. That has nothing to do with me.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I like having these numbers. I had a article. I think they published it. There's a number of articles that I have written that haven't got published. Like as an example, this article that got published in February, I wrote that a year ago.
Oh, yes.
And it just got published. So, but yeah, I wrote an article, show me the numbers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because we can talk all we want about warm and fuzzy stuff, but I like to know the numbers because then there's no BS and we're not speculating. If that I'm not sure if that makes sense or not, but that's how I look at it.
It does, yeah. And, if you're not profitable, you're not going to continue doing this.
I do have to tell you one thing that I'm really excited about where I'm at. So they have, I'm not sure how much you know about the Hutterite culture, but they have, it's kind of like the forage philosophy, learn to do by doing.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, they have these different areas and these kids are going and they spend 6 months in each area. And then, they kind of decide where someone's aptitude and interest lies. And then they go and they apprentice.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I have agreed to let me develop an apprentice program, a 3-year apprentice program for grazing, kind of a grazing manager. And the idea is to basically train 2 to 4 people to replace me when my contract is up. So I'm pretty excited about that because it's going to be very formalized and it's going to help me think through teaching as well. And I think that's another thing that I haven't done yet before I die. And I want to, and I'm excited about it. So
that is very exciting. And like you said, going through that process to teach, it's going to cause you to think through it even more and get a better understanding. So you present it even better to them.
Yeah. Like an area that I have a heck of a time with is the low stress animal handling.
Oh, yes.
That's why I rely on, I don't know, have you read or seen any of Bob Kinford's videos?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So that's something that I've been doing I started working on that, I think, in about 2007. I call it creating the herd. He calls it rebooting the herd instinct.
Yes. Yeah.
But he explains it way better than me. And I've been trying to teach people. I don't know, for some reason, I can't relate what's in my head to them very well. So I rely on a lot of his stuff to explain, I guess. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We had him on a podcast. It's been quite a while, probably 3 years ago now.
I know. And I was listening to that. And that's where I found Bob. And I went and I've seen all of his stuff. And it was because he was on your podcast. So.
Well, good. Making a difference, one podcast episode at a time.
There you go, man. That's awesome.
We'll get to the famous 4 in just a moment. But before we started recording the episode, Tom and I had a pretty interesting conversation. I wanted to include that here as well. So we'll start with this conversation. I'd asked him about what he's been up to. And then after it, we will hit the famous 4.
I've been trying to figure out since 2004, to tell you the truth, how to develop swath grazing for alternative to feedlot growing cattle.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. I've done tons of swath grazing of dry cows. And I mean, honestly, I think anybody can do it. That's how simple it is. And of course you have to have some experience, you know what I'm saying, but it's because their energy requirement is so low. Yeah. So I've been trying since 2004 to have an alternative, and it can't be just, and when I say alternative, my goal is to figure out how to have these growing cattle gaining 3 pounds a day out on swaths.
Right. Because if you're going to do that in place of something, you've got to get that production level up.
Exactly. Otherwise, it's not an alternative to feedlot operators.
Right.
How many people in the regen ag movement can complain about the confinement model?
Right. Right.
Hey, what's an alternative for these feeders? These feeders have to make money. That the people that are feeding cattle, they have to make money. and they can't have cattle gaining, half a pound or 1 pound a day. You know what I'm saying, Cal?
Right. Time is money. And if they can't get them to that weight as quick as they are or fairly close to it, what they're doing in a feedlot, it's outside the realm of possibilities for them.
Very well put. Yeah, so I haven't figured that out. I actually did think that we were going to hit that this year because I'm not a farmer, Cal. So I'm relying on, like, where I'm working, I would say they're master farmers. There's, well, a guy that the head farmer, John, he is so knowledgeable, and it's pretty cool to have that access to that expertise. And it's just using his, and this is what we need, to get these gains on cattle. And so anyways, the cover crop thing has been, everybody's talking about cover crops, and I call it polyculture, or, polycrop up here, because we don't have a long enough growing season. So, you can't follow one crop after another, for my understanding anyways. So and I thought this would be a great, because, all the farmers are talking about this. And so I have seen, prior to this past fall, I have seen 3 cover crops that have been grown specifically for swath grazing and silage. And I have not been happy with the feed tests.
And what crops were those?
I don't know. There's they had barley, they had oats, they had peas, and something like 12
polyculture
different.
they have.
Yeah, the real polyculture, 12 to 18 different varieties. So, and just I know that if you are going to grow a high volume, high quality crop for swath grazing, you have to seed it early. And when I say early, I mean at the same time that you would any cash crop. You have to put it in at that time so that you get the volume. And then to get the quality, you have to cut it early.
Yes.
So I know that, just that my experience has only been with oats, monoculture oats. So anyways, I saw three feed tests, and I always thought that they were not cutting it early. This year, I had full control of that. And I honestly we did the best that we could with that crop, and the feed test was the same. And so then I was being told by our nutritionist, she has a lot of experience with, or I should say, she's getting a lot of experience with cover crop. And so she was telling me, and then the fellow who does the finishing, he was telling me that the cattle, it's fine, don't worry about it. The cattle will do way better. And I was unsure. And so what I did was 6 weeks later, I took another feed test, and the results were the same. And they kept telling me that everything was going to be fine. And so then we put the cattle out, and they came off grass way significantly heavier than what we had planned. They did really well on grass. Just even this first year, just grazing in the sweet spot. I don't know if you're doing that yet, but my experience with grazing in the sweet spot, the grass may not, in terms of volume, may not improve that much, but your weight gains vastly improve right off the bat. So anyways, that's what these cattle did. And so then we put them out on the swaths, and I'm watching them, and their manure isn't quite right. And then I started to notice they start to lose their bloom. And 9 days I called it. And I said,
oh, yes,
the feed test was the feed test. There's no BS. That's what those animals were eating. So then, they needed to be supplemented because the protein was low, and the TDN for growing cattle for good gains, it was low. It was good for dry cows. Dry cows would have been, but these cattle need to be gaining 2.5 pounds a day.
So what's your plan to get them there?
We need to go to a different mix. And the thing about it, again, John and I've become pretty good friends, and he hasn't been happy with since they started doing the cover crop or the polyculture, but he used to have a good mix that he was very happy with. And I said, let's go back. You already know how to grow that. I'm just going to be here to make sure that we get it cut early to get the quality. I'm disappointed that I don't have this figured out yet, but I'm going to get it figured out, because there has to be we need to have a solution. We need an
yeah.
alternative because the cost is ridiculous. Right now in the feedlot, like on a per pound basis, it's crazy. So we need to have an alternative. And just on a personal level, I do not like the confinement model. I want to find out an alternative.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one. And the other one that's really near and dear to me is not proving, because I've already proven this, but document it better. And that is finishing hogs without grain.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't done a lot. I think if I think about it, probably maybe 400 to 500 hogs I've finished with no grain. That's like after 150 pounds. After 150 pounds, and they do very well. I don't have hard data because I was at the time I never had any intention of writing a book and documenting all that stuff. But that's something that I want to document, and then we can get the hogs out of an alternative for getting them out of the barns as well. So those are the two of the things that I haven't accomplished yet, that I'm in a position now that I can. And the thing about the Huttery colony that I'm working for, they have their own line of grass forage finished beef. It's called Prairie Ranchers beef. They do 1,700 head, and they have their own state-of-the-art packing plant. So they do their own beefs and package, and they sell all across Canada. And then they do a bunch of custom work, custom beeves, and also bison out of that plant. And like I said, for the things that I want to accomplish, I don't really think I could be anywhere better. And I get to have the winters off and go diving, scuba diving.
Oh, perfect. Let's do the famous four questions we ask of all of our guests, and we'll see how your answers compare to last time. McKinley and Mitch from Grazing Grass episode 146 are both accredited by the Savory Institute and will host a 3-day workshop in Oakley, Utah, April 22nd through 24th. It'll be focused on all things holistic. Specifically, they'll spend 3 days on holistic management, land planning, planned grazing, and holistic financial planning. The targeted outcome is greater confidence in knowing that you can accomplish in your operation and how the land can strengthen in the process. The workshops are sponsored by the Grazing Lands Conservation Initiative through the USDA and also include a travel stipend. Go to threespringsutah.com to learn more. Our first question, what's your favorite grazing grass related book or resource?
Still have to go back to the original and grass productivity.
Oh, yes. Excellent resource there. Yeah. Our second question, what's your favorite tool for the farm or ranch?
I still like a horse. However, I'm going to throw in the grazing chart as I know people probably don't think of it as a tool, but the more that I'm thinking about it, it's a vital tool. To get to that 300 plus stock days per acre, I don't think we can do it without a grazing chart.
Without a grazing chart, yeah. And to be honest, every grazing school I've been to talk about it, but I don't see a lot out there getting used. So,
and the only people that I've seen who actually use a grazing chart are using it as a recording tool and not a planning tool.
And not a planning tool. Our third question, what would you tell someone just getting started?
Don't take on too much, because you're gonna get burnt out. You're gonna spend all your energy and all your money, and then the likelihood of you quitting is pretty high.
Yes. And that's excellent advice, Tom. And we all just have a tendency to be like, oh, that's not that much more. I'll do that. And before long, you're like, I just planned 48 hours for one day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And lastly, where can others find out more about you?
You know what? I have a YouTube channel. I don't know how many videos I have on there. I don't know, 8 or 10 videos on there, a variety of things. And I have my web page, But honestly, I don't update that. It's not a priority for me.
Yes.
So honestly, my priority is, like we were talking about earlier, there's these things that I haven't accomplished professionally yet, and I'm getting older. So that's where my focus is lying. But I, you know what? I've written plenty of articles like on pasture and Stockman Grass Farmer. And then I think my 2 presentations from the South Dakota Soil Health Conference, they're online. And then I did one in Manitoba last November. That's going to be online. I'm really happy with that one because I've just gotten better.
Oh, yes.
So
If there's one takeaway from today, it's this. Great grazing isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things consistently. And often that comes down to understanding your numbers, respecting your graze and rest periods, and making small adjustments that compound over time. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations like this. And if you know someone who's working to improve their grazing system, share this episode with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear. As always, you can find links to resources mentioned in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast. Build soil, grow grass. Boy, that's tough. Build soil, grow grass. That doesn't come out. Build soil, grow grass, move livestock. Build soil, grow grass, move livestock. And until next time, keep on grazing.
Dakota, that was my first presentation, so I did a lot of work on it. Yeah, and that's about it.
Well, very good. And people, don't forget, you've got a book out there.
Oh my gosh!
And like you mentioned to me,
please buy my book.
Yeah, if you
buy some for your grandkids and your cousins too.
Yeah, if you've already read the one you have, go buy a second one so you can reread it.
Yes, and I have to tell you, Cal, once I get this swath grazing thing sorted out, there will be a second issue coming because I think that it's going to be very powerful once I get it sorted out. I hope in 3 years I'll have it sorted out.
Yeah.
That we're gaining, we have high volume, and we're have forage that the cattle are gaining 3 pounds a day. That's my target.
Yeah.
So we shall see.
I'll be looking forward to it.
Cool,
Tom,
buddy.
Really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us today.
Thanks.
If there's one takeaway from today, it's this. Great grazing isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things consistently. And often that comes down to understanding your numbers, respecting your graze and rest periods, and making small adjustments that compound over time. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations like this one. And if you know someone who's working to improve their grazing system, share this episode with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear. As always, you can find links to resources mentioned in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast. Build soil, grow grass, move livestock. And until next time, keep on grazing.